Okay, well, looks like today I'm on time for once. Don't get used to it though. Okay, so today, so we were working through. Hmm. Right there, right there, right there. Okay. So beat two is going to be the big beat, the big thing, and let's uh, let's go ahead. So let's do something here. No, let's not do that. Yes, let's do that. Let's copy this, and then let's go ahead and put the asterisk back in here. Like that. Then I'm gonna do this, and chapter 16. John finds a good book, and okay, it doesn't have to be the whole bookshelf. It could just be a few of the books or something. I don't know. Oh, there's supposed to be a group of them, so we'll still. We're gonna change this one though. They go into the library after reading temporary godmothers. Um, Hubert drinks all the library shelves and puts them in a bag. Okay, puts them in the bag, puts them in the box, doesn't really matter. Okay. Uh, all right. Since this is a copy of 16 down below, we are going to go ahead and be able to modify this. So back at the back at that. Um, Violet, where to be found a master secretary. He did. Okay. John Vacay Hubert reconstitutes the library and ballroom. After what they learn, John volunteers go into Red Riding Hood first. Okay. And let's see. I generally know. Okay. So I generally know the Red Riding Hood, but let's see if I can find Red Riding Hood the story. Okay. Grim Fairy Tale. Oh, Little Red Riding Hood. Yeah. Stay on the path and not talk to strangers. Tricks her into straying to pick flowers, allowing him to race ahead. Our grandmother. And disguise himself in her bed. Okay, this just gives me a good overview right here. Little Red Riding Hood arrives. She notices the wolf's strange appearance. Famously changed about his big ears, eyes, hands, and teeth before the wolf jumps out and eats her as well. Passing huntsman hears the wolf snoring, cuts open his belly with scissors, and rescues both the girl and bank, who emerge alive and unharmed. The trio fills the wolf's belly with heavy stones, causing him to die when he tries to run. That's that's pretty freaky and gross. Uh, a second ending in this version describes a later encounter where the wiser Little Red Riding Hood avoids the wolf's tricks and with her grandmother lures another wolf down the chimney into boiling water. In contrast, the original 1967 version by Charles Perrault ends tragically with the wolf eating Little Red Riding Hood and no rescue, serving as a stark warning about the dangers of talking to strangers. While Perrault's tale includes an explicit moral about charming predators, the grim version adds the element of rescue and redemption, make it the most famous retelling today. The story is classified as a fairy tale and symbolizes the danger of deception and the importance of obeying parental guidance. Um, huh. Even the grim version is a little, it's a little graphic. This was intentional violence, such as the wolf being cut open, filled with stones. This being the danger of deception. Stark contrast, good versus evil. Yes, I know that. Also, a bit illogical. While, like any fantasy, you can have anything you want in it. The idea of cutting open the wolf's belly, but that not killing, but the stones end up doing it. That's just a bit gratuitous. It cut open only die later from the weight of the stone is illogically inconsistent by modern standards. However, this element is not to be is symbolic. The grim version of the stones represent justice, retribution, the weight of consequence that ultimately destroys the predator. Oh, well, that's a good. Okay, I get it. By collapse or drowning in some version, he falls into a well. Shows a moral payoff, reinforcing that evil is undone by its own burden. The lack of realism, like the wolf sleeping through surgery or the unharmed survivors emerging from this, is rooted in folkloric logic, not naturalism. These mythic symbolism, rebirth from the wolf's belly, is noted rather than physical plausibility, focuses on moral clarity, not anatomical accuracy. Interesting. That's pretty interesting. Why does wolf death only occur after the stones are placed? Does folklore justify the wolf's survival after being cut open? The scene represents a mythic rebirth. The girl and the grandmother emerging from both symbolize renewal and transformation common. The wolf's later death from the stones reflects poetic justice where the predator is undone by his own gluttony and deceit. The narrative follows folkloric patterns where physical plausibility is secondary to moral and symbolic meaning. Not surgery, but a ritual act of salvation, emphasizing the triumph of innocence and the restorative power of intervention embodied by the huntsman. This eventual death by weight of stones reinforces the idea that evil is self-destructive. Might even be a little bit of a kind of a Christian almost moral to it in a way. You know, the huntsman representing Jesus, right? And then judgment on the wolf, right? You could almost say there's a bit of a Christian corollary. I don't know how corollary. Corollary. Okay. 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 Where the huntsman represents Jesus saving us from our sins and ultimately uh ultimately maybe judging, right? Judging and destroying evil. You know, there's judgment, right? Sin. The deceiver disguises himself like a wolf in sheep's clothing to lead the innocent astray. The other represents humanity, vulnerable and prone to temptation, much like Eve in the Garden of Eden. The huntsman is seen as a Christ-like savior figure who rescues the girl and her grandmother from death, mirroring Jesus' descent into hell and resurrection, freeing the souls trapped by sin and death. The act of cutting open the wolf and reviving the victim symbolizes spiritual rebirth and resurrection, theme emphasized by scholars like Bruno Bettelheim. The wolf's eventual death by stones reflects divine judgment, where evil is ultimately destroyed by his own weight, paralleling the idea of the final judgment in Christian eschatology. This allegory is not part of the original folktale, but has been applied by various Christian teachers and writers who view the story's structure as reflecting redemptive themes central to the gospel. Um, I think a lot of old morality tales were probably rooted in Christian symbolism, even if they're not directly trying to teach Christianity. I think C.S. Lewis talked about how the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe weren't deliberately wasn't deliberately a Christian allegory, but because he was a Christian, it ended up in his writing. Yes, absolutely right. Many old morality tales, while not explicitly Christian, are deeply shaped by Christian cultural frameworks, especially in Europe. C.S. Lewis himself acknowledged that he didn't set out to write an allegory because he was a committed Christian. His worldview naturally infused his storytelling. He described the Chronicles of Narnia as supposals, imaginative explorations of what it might mean for Christ to act in another world. Aslan isn't a symbol standing in for Jesus, Lewis said. What might Christ become like if he entered a world like Narnia? This is why the story feels spiritually resonant being without being a one-to-one allegory like Pilgrim's Progress. Lewis believed that myth could still pass watchful dragons, the intellectual and emotional defenses people have against direct religious teaching. By embedding Christian truths in a fantasy world, he could awaken a longing for goodness, sacrifice, and redemption in readers who might otherwise reject doctrine outright. You're right. Which reflects a broader pattern. Folk tales, legends, fairy tales often carry resonances of Christian themes: sin, redemption, resurrection, divine justice, not because they're sermons, but because they emerge from cultures steeped in Christian thought. Symbolism isn't always intentional, but it's there, like sunlight filtering through stained glass. Okay, thanks. I'm I'm making a game uh, where um, red is, how should I say it? Where there's a character that red is based on red. Right, good. There's a character red that is based on, and in fact, in my game's story, she ran a scam with grandma to take wolf pelts by seducing them. Yeah, I know it kind of turns the story on its ear, right? That's an interesting thought here. If if Red Riding Hood represents humanity and the wolf represents sin and temptation and all that stuff, um, whereas in the story she's caught and then rescued. In my story, uh, she's actually the bad guy. She's actually the evil one. It's just funny because you could take it she still represents humanity, but sometimes people are just they're straight up evil, right? A lot of people say that well, it could be environmental, blah blah blah, circumstances, whatever. No, sometimes they're just plain evil. If you watch most movies and TV shows, at least modern ones, you're gonna find out that all of the villains that are evil are sympathetic. Something happened to them. Their parents were killed, like the Joker, or something happened to them that turned them from innocent to evil. And the reality is, we're all evil, and we all need Jesus, basically. So sorry if it sounds like I'm preaching, because I kind of am. Just because it's bringing this up, I won't go into religion too deep right this second. I'll get back to my game here. But the truth is that we're all evil, and we need Jesus basically to save us, right? The Adam and Eve committed the original sin. We have sin within us, right? Now God's there, and He gives us a measure of faith. He gives everybody a measure of faith. In other words, that we can believe in Him. Um, where was I going with this? Um, the basic idea is that by our sin nature, we're evil. By sin nature, we're greedy. We lust after everything. We get wrapped up in a lot of stuff um, that we shouldn't, and even the best people are subject. Even the best, your Billy Grahams and whatever. And I'm not even saying Billy Graham's the greatest guy or whatever. I'm just saying, uh, or a Mother Teresa or whatever. We all have sins. They had sins, and it's not something you can get away from, right? But so if you're looking at my story, Red is evil. She's not a good person in my story. She doesn't represent innocent. She might represent evil humanity, basically. Anyways, I'll stop. I'll get off of this thing. Uh this little thing I'm on. And what's this? Okay, that was old. Okay. Anyways, let's get back to the game. Until one day where one of the wolves got the better of Grandma, and Red was in hiding until my main villain Max gets her out of retirement. To Shin at all, but making game. Okay, gets they're out of hiding to go and constrict the werewolves of Enchanted and the Magic Kingdom turned resort, turned tourist resort. Um, Another villain, next villainous. Villain. What's a feminine form of villain of the word villain? Villainess. Okay. Right. Bill A-I-N. What is oh I see what is versus what. Okay. Billainess. Uh Violet is this woman and evil witch, and she doesn't like Red very much. So she arranges to have her. Okay. Um, she doesn't like Red very much. So Max and Violet devise a plan to keep his own henchmen happy. Well, it'd be his army, his knights, or whatever you want to say. So Max and Violet devise a plan to keep his own henchmen happy by marrying them off to the women that came in to have a princess vacation at the resort. So they're abducted and forced into these storybooks to play out the books as written. Fairy tales. To play out the books as written. And by the way, if you're from the UK or Europe, you probably call them fairy stories. I've heard it called fairy stories, but typically we call them fairy tales here in the US. So fairy tales are the same as fairy stories in other countries. Play. If they don't resist, they end up marrying the prince. Yeah, I mean they'd have to be prince stories where they actually marry him because they were marrying him off. So those are gonna have to be um, princes in those stories, which means uh, they're married in the real world being my fantasy realm of enchanted lands. If they resist, though, once it gets to the end, it resets. Um, Also, I don't know if this will have any bearing in the game, but presumably each time they loop, they get worn down a little more until they eventually give in. Now, how this ties back to red is that uh, Violet had a special book made for red. For red. But red is disposed of earlier in the story, and so when Princess, when Princess Karen, um, one of our heroines, or heroines, um, um, infiltrates Fairy God College, where Violet had taken over. Violet places her in Red's book. The book, of course, is no Red writing was originally meant to get rid of Red, and now Karen needs to be rescued from it. Only celebrates the little Red Riding Hood by reimagining Red as a cunning con artist who exploited the wolf myth, only for the story to be weaponized against others through a looping storybook prison. This aligns with the modern narrative trend seen in games like The Witcher and Shadow of the Colossus, which challenge fairy tale tropes such as passive heroines or clear moral binaries by introducing. Okay, yeah, this is not. There's no moral ambiguity here. Um, Red Red is a villainess, and Violet's both Red and Violet's are villainesses. They're bad girls basically. Uh, Meets the story, but wears down the victim. Echoes psychological horror and existential themes. Jorah's Mask of the Outer Worlds, where repetition builds tension and transformation. Each loop could offer subtle changes, letting players uncover hidden narrative layers. As a trap originally meant for Red, adds poetic irony, especially with Karen, a heroine forced to survive a corrupted version of a cautionary tale. This mirrors Storyteller, the puzzle game, where the narrative structure dictates outcome and player manipulation of story beats determines survival. To enhance gameplay, consider letting players alter key story beats, skipping the path, refusing the basket, preventing the wolf. Yeah. So I have a story and everything for this. The way John with Sir William, a knight was turned into a unicorn, but has by this time in the story been restored back to his human form. And Sir William's men rescue the vacation princesses is by it's by breaking the loop. So first, John volunteers to go rescue Karen, and before any other rescues, so he can figure out how it works. And so it eventually works by bringing something from their reality into the story that eventually breaks the loop. In John's case, it's probably his library card. That's something modern, but it's related to John's character, as he and his mom work in the library. So he knows a bit about fairy tale logic. So then, when he finally breaks her free, then he tells Sir William that they need to bring in something from the real world that's somehow related to the woman's reality, such as a shoe, uh, such as a shoe for Cinderella, um, and such like that. I don't even know why I'm telling this to Brave. I just decided maybe it'll just help me kind of solidify my thoughts about how I'm gonna work this. Aligns with metafictional and folkloric logic. Library works perfectly for John as it symbolizes his connection to knowledge, reality, and his role as someone who understands story structures that mirrors tropes seen in games like the Stanley Parable or Little Nightmares, where self-awareness and external artifacts disrupt deterministic narratives. Bringing them as like a modern truth to Cinderella or personal belonging tied to each vacation princess reinforces the theme of identity breaks illusion. It suggests that fairy tale prisons rely on erasure of self, and victims must forget their real lives to conform to roles. Introducing a tangible piece of their world shatters that control, much like how Deus Ex Machina fails uh, unless it's earned or rooted in established rules. The This system also involves emotional weight. Each object isn't just keys, but a symbol of resistance, grounding the characters in who they truly are. It's a strong metaphor for autonomy versus coercion. Yes. Okay. Anyways, thanks for the chat. I just really needed to re reorient myself with the original story, grim vision. Chats with a wolf in the woods, reveals her destination. The wolf races ahead, eats the grandmother, disguises. She brings food again. This time she stays on the path and warns her grandmother. They lock the door, and when the wolf climbs into the roof to wait for her. Grandma tricks him by having Little Red riding to fill a stone trough with the sausage cooking water. The wolf, lured by the smell, stretches too far, slips off the roof, and drowns in the trough. Obey her mother and never stray from the path. Yep. Yep, that's good. Thanks. Okay. So now let's just go ahead and let's actually go to Gemini right now. Two. Okay. Logic error solution. Uh, business with a personal item for the railroad. This creates a narrative paradox, but cannot resolve the presence of railroad. Okay. Okay, please tell me the date and time. Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, that's fine. And do you know the date I was in this chat? I was in this chat last. Personalization, huh? Yesterday, Monday. Oh, well, well, if it was April 6th at 3:50 last, and it's now April 7th this afternoon, what does that suggest? I don't know. I like to play with these AIs and ask them stuff to do stuff or whatever. We didn't start at 10:45 today. Um, I wasn't on 10:45 today. In fact, I don't think I even had my computer on. I don't know. AIs, right? They're still just prediction engines, right? Word prediction engines. Um, no. What was the date and time you just told me when I asked for it? Yeah. Okay, so new day. I just started at 12:10 today when I first asked you the date and time. We finished yesterday, probably about 3:50. Okay. Reach. I see where we got. You're absolutely right. Today's entire session started exactly when you asked for the time. That means we just had incredibly high speed sprint. We haven't done anything yet today. It's only 5 minutes later. We couldn't have done anything in that time anyway. Maybe you could. but I certainly didn't get much done in 5 minutes. Yes. Okay. Did I decide what exactly John would use to break the book's logic in Red Riding Hood? Actually, little, because she's like a girl, I guess, but he decided the key was using an object from the characters had on them in the real world that shouldn't exist in a fairy tale. For John and Karen, specifically, mentioned the following. Like his library card, a specific personal trinket of Karen that he managed to scavenge from lost and found pile near Violet's converted incinerator. The action John enters the book and presents his object to Karen. Because the object carries the reality of her true identity, it creates a narrative paradox. The book's magic can't resolve Karen, the library patron, being inside the Red Riding Hood script. Crash. Incinerator existed to destroy their identities and gave the knights a non-violent way to rescue the other women. They just had to find the personal item for each one to show it to them and break the spell. Um, the library card is a little thin because that's personal to John. Now, um, I'm hinting at a budding romance between them, but um, that would only work if she knew he worked at a library and was into books, which is not impossible or plausible. Why would implausible not be a word? Implausible? Okay, implausible. But it's a tiny stretch. What to lean that? That won't be it. Karen, she lost something small, earring, bracelet, or even a work pity badge from her. John found it. Okay. Stylized. Back version of force something simple as a water ball. A keychain belonging to her look alien in that world. And he used the nudge forward. Okay. Yeah. Well, have to establish. I'll have to establish. I'll have to establish what that is, though. She's a real princess from her realm. I call it verdance. I wonder if it should be verdance with an E. Verdance is. What is verdance? No. I mean, is it a real word, or is it a real word? Is it a real word? If you're remaining true in the word independence. Yeah, prudency. Um, okay, so in my actually, you know what? Let's do this. Uh, let's actually go over here because I still uh no, why was I saying that? Verdance. So in my game, uh people can come from various realms. And so far I'm naming them after uh strange or usual color names. For instance, our realm, where John currently comes from, one of our main heroes, uh, is called Cerulean. Even though it's just Earth, that's that that looks blue. Um, I decided to name our realm after like cerulean blue. So, Princess Karen is from the realm of verdance, but I'm reconsidering the spelling. Maybe I should uh, use an E for as in verdance because her realm is green, or I and it's not like the Wizard of Oz where everything in the Emerald City is green, or the land of the Winkies is completely yellow. But that's like the major color that represents the realm. So should I use um, verdance or verdance spelling here? I know spelling seems like a weird thing, but the this and directly derives from verdant. This comes to Latin from verdus, virile, okay, meaning green. The ant suffix is consistent with other realm names like cerulean from cerulean and gives it poetic noun like quality, suggesting the state of being green or lushness. For instance, not recognized word in Mayfield like misspelling. Sounds intentional, lyrical, and bitchy. Okay, I'll leave it like that. I call it verdance. Uh, And the first time John sees her, he, like every other tourist, uses a Quicksilver ticket. Quicksilver is a magical mineral that the magic of Enchanted lands runs off of. I created an actual pseudo-scientific name, Luminite. But Quicksilver is the thing, and it has no relation to Mercury. To open a portal and go into Enchanted lands, and he ends up on the inside of a flying train, which is how most people get to Enchanted lands. It takes them to the administration castle to get any tickets, any vouchers, accommodations, etc. for the resort, and then they take another flying train down to the surface. Okay. Anyways, so John pops into the train. But as he's looking for a seat, Barty, king of the gnomes, who's short, squat, fat little man, sprinkles something like pixie dust onto Karen and abducts her, and then jumps off the train. Then later we find out the princess was taken to the main hotel, the Grand Enchanted Indian, and tied up to a wine cask, a giant wine barrel cradle. And Hubert, the wizard who brought John in, go and rescue her. So at this stage, so at the fairy tale book part, some other stuff has happened, and she wants to go help rescue the vacation princesses. So she volunteers to go in as a vacation princess and has the count. He's a good vampire. Vampires in Enchanted and are not undead, nor evil, nor blood suckers. Changes into a bat and hides in her purse. So they infiltrate. I don't know why I was even saying that. Oh, this is still in Gemini. Isn't it bad? So they infiltrate. I forgot. I thought I was talking to dang Leo. I wasn't. Uh, infiltrate account. Um, finds out they were hidden. Uh, finds finds out what happens, and the rest, you know. If it sounds like I'm re-explaining everything, you probably already know. It's because I thought I was still talking to Brave Leo. Churches Leo. I asked it about the spelling of prudence. And I get distracted easily. I don't know why they didn't send it. Something went wrong. Why did something go wrong? Yeah, I'll establish that is go. John and Princess Baron first met when he helped rescue her from um Grand Enchanted Candy and Wine Cellar. Didn't look like it's going right. Good. 0 dropped frames. Nice. He first saw her though when he entered Enchanted Lands, our realm, and saw her being abducted by the party king. Okay. Maybe there's something I said. Maybe I because the Brave Leo, or I've mentioned other AIs in here before though, so that shouldn't be in it. Maybe just the way I worded it. It's like when I say something about generating images, and I wasn't asking it to generate an image, but somehow it extracted that out of it, which is kind of weird because you think what would happen is each time the AI chatbot should take in the words first, analyze the words, and then say, okay, he's actually asking for something. Okay, let's go out to the image generator or whatever it is, you know. But it doesn't seem to do that. What it does do is the input box is being monitored, and when you put something in, it must do some sort of pre-processing before actually going to the AI to the LLM. Maybe she drops something smaller. Ribbon, a locket, ribbon, distinctive hair clip. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea, actually. The break. Option two, the wine cellar token. Oh, yeah. There was some items that they had to use to break her free. If at least one of those is because okay, so Hubert only had half of his magic, so he could only like open, let's say, one thing, right? And well, I have to make sure that John has held on to something. In other words, in all iterations, he'd still have it at the end. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are so this is basically a decision. Does she lose something? In which case I have to put that back that uh in some of the earlier pages, which is not hard at all. Or uh if it's something from the rescue, I have to um I have to make sure John still has it since no state there's no save there's no save state system. So if at least one of those methods to free her was only Hubert, and John um, didn't use a tool at all in any one of the branching paths, um, then I can't use something from the rescue. Um, maybe that's where you might be useful. Look in my all rooms file, and I think it might be chapter 5. I think it's chapter 5, but you'll have to scan to make sure. And see wherever the rescue takes place. Hubert can cast a couple of spells, but they only work halfway, which means John has to physically remove the other one. But I'm not sure if there's not a path that doesn't require John's intervention at all. I think at one point Hubert can cast some sort of dissolve on the cuffs, which weakens them, and the princess can break them. And that might mean there's a path where John hasn't picked up an item. What the heck is going wrong here? Something went wrong. Cut. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna repaste. What is going wrong here? Unless Dad is up and he's like messing around with Gemini, but that doesn't affect me because I'm on my own account. Did it mess up still? I'm wondering if it's messing up from. Could our conversation be too long while you are airing? That shouldn't be that long though. Okay. Yeah, that's probably fine, but I don't know why, but we seem to keep glitching, and I don't think this chat is longer than the previous one. We the previous one. Anyways, to be an abduction token, there has to be John has to have picked up something in all outcomes. Um, no, I mean, you can check out, maybe it has a problem. No, you can check out the all rooms file, and I think it's chapter 5, but for the princess rescue, Hubert can cast a few spells. Now, there might be one where he doesn't cast a few spells. Some of them require John to help intervene, and at least one might not. Can you see if one of the paths where Hubert cast the dissolving spell on the cuffs, if John participates in that? No. Maybe it has a problem. Okay, workspace connecting. It doesn't have that problem. That's not the sort of problem. Okay, chapter 8. John does not participate. That version, Hubert's spell only opens one shackle, and John must use a cheese knife or a big corkscrew to pick the lock. Okay. Okay, so then I have to modify that. I guess it's easier anyway to add a line where she drops probably the locket. And in fact, is the most plausible item to fall off the person. Since Barty is very, very short and squat, he heaves her over his shoulder. This sort of demonstrates gnomes are stocky and super strong. And even though she's not a big girl, she's still a human female body. So her head her head would be hanging down almost on the floor, but not quite. So a locket or a necklace could easily slip off. That's a perfect piece of physical blocking for the scene because Barty is short and squat. The physics of him heaving over naturally puts her head and neck in a position where the locket would dangle and slide right off as he runs. Comes three things. The gnome's strength tell. It visually demonstrates gnomes are powerless. Yeah, I mean, it already does. It says that even though carrying is a standard human, battery carriers are like a sack of grain or even porcelain white. They are a threat in later battle chapters. The auto-acquire mechanic, since John is right there in the opening, he doesn't need a choice to pick it up. He can simply walk over to the spot where they vanished, and the game can have a mandatory interaction. Picks up the lock. The chain is snapped. The chapter 16. It's her locket that she lost. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that's actually a good thing, and I should probably add that in here in just a moment. Also, It's something you're likely to forget. In fact, what do they call that in movie making or screen writing? Laying pipe, meaning foreshadowing or something that the audience forgets about, but when it's produced later, they remember the thing. Mm. It's a process of planning a detail early on that seems minor or just part of the atmosphere, but is actually structural plumbing that pays off later. When the pipe finally delivers the water, chapter 16 becomes a plant and payoff. Karen is abducted in the chaos lock if John picks it up. Oh, a quest item. That's a nice character beat. Misdirection. The story gets busy. There are gnomes, wine cellars, and travel. The locket sits in the inventory, becomes a background noise. The payoff. When John is in the book trap, the audience realizes this will just collectible to anchor to reality. Uh, all ages emotional beat. Yeah, okay. Because you're keeping this all ages locket as a great non-violent weapon. John doesn't need to be a warrior to save her. Um, yeah. I guess I get to the actual full text adventure parser with puzzles and inventory. This should also just be something that is automatically acquired, meaning the player doesn't have doesn't have to pick it up. I mean, it would have to be that way, or else it's uh, or else you would have to, like the old Sierra games, go to an old save game and then play it uh, all the way until you need to use it. That was highly annoying. Needing an item you could no longer retrieve. Deadly Pocket. Nothing killed a player spun faster in a Sierra game than realizing 20 hours then they forgot to pick up a little piece of lint in the first room and now the game's unbeatable. Since you're building a modern experience, making an auto acquire is definitely the right call. It keeps the string of pearls. Okay. To make it feel natural, you can trigger it during the transition out of an opening scene. Okay. I guess I could and if I wanted. Okay. Lock a pipe. Okay. That's all right. So it's about time for me to go. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Just I don't know. I guess I tend to screw around a little more than I should. Let's go to no. Let's go back to favorites and let's go to this. Okay. Let's go ahead and open this up and Go right to the abduction, which is going to be like right in the opening scene. Um, well, not in the opening scene. That's right. Twin brothers. Oh, the dead drop. Okay. All right. Keep going. We need to go to chapter 3. Wait a second. Okay, not chapter 3 then. Okay, let's Hebrew goes for help. Oh, that's why it says chapter 1, of course. Magic mailbox. Hat magic. The silver ticket. Okay, so as soon as inside the portal appears to be inside of a train, this be grabbed by a short, fat little man as a train, causing John to fall. Okay. Let's do this. He notices a beautiful young woman in the front. Uh, that's as he's by a short, squat, short, fat, little man. Uh, little man jumps out the door. John notices a locket. Say necklace, necklace, locket, locket, necklace. John notices a locket fall from the woman's neck as the little man carries her to the door and jumps out. Okay. The train cabin starts tumbling, causing John to fall, which causes him to black out. Okay. And that's all it is. Oh no. He uh he grabs the locket just as the train starts tumbling, causing him to fall. John blacks out, and when he awakens, is in a forest without leaves. A man dressed in blue with a pointy hat approaches him. The man with the pointy... Wait. And introduces himself as Stuart. To follow him. Okay. Let's say room data. We're going to do a... Yeah, of course, I'm late on my break, though, of course, like usual. Let's go to this. Let's go to rooms. And we're just going to open in terminal here. DR Python 3 generate chapter files.py. It should do the same thing. Generate rooms doc. Okay. And so that means that chapter 1 okay, that works. That works. It's already in there, and it should be in here too. Should be able to find lock it in here. Okay, good, good. And one more thing. You know the thing. There's the thing. Actually, let's go into, there we go. Let's go to allrooms.md. Let's go ahead and delete it. Trash. And let's go ahead and we will let's do that. Load complete. Okay, good. Give me the ID of the page where John picks up the locket. I've just uploaded a new version of allrooms file. It should be fine. I mean, it should just find it. Okay, good. Thanks. So that's there. Now I must break for about an hour. Okay, so I want to say thanks for watching and or listening, and I'll see you about an hour for part two if you care to join me. Thank you for watching part one, episode 2D7, part one.